But that was my reality as a child of a single mom who had to work, when we were little. And then when I was older, when I was in high school, I worked all summer. So, I've had a job since I was like 15. And it was always my dream. Again, I don't really know why it was my dream, but finally last year, I did not. Hey everyone, welcome back to a whole new year. This episode is airing January of 2023. I'm not sure when everyone will be listening to it. I am actually recording it December 23rd, 2022. And I literally, let's see, at the time of right now, it is East Coast time, 11 o'clock a.m. I've been sitting in front of my computer since 8. So for 3 hours, I've literally been procrastinating doing this. I wrote the outline. I've made 2 cups of coffee. I've scrolled mindlessly through Instagram and TikTok. And now I finally was like, girl, just get it together, sit down, record this episode. I'm hopefully going to record 2 podcast episodes so I can be a little caught up. And I'm so excited. This is like going to be going on the 3rd year of this podcast. I cannot believe it. I still remember the conversation 2 years ago when my team was like, you really should do a podcast. And I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not interested. No way. And I have to say, I'm so glad that they pushed me because I really love it. As an introvert, I just love being in my office and drinking my coffee and looking at my dog on my couch and sitting in front of my computer and just talking, having no one talk back at me. So even though it's kind of weird to be staring at myself in a computer, I actually have really, really enjoyed doing this podcast. So if any of you are thinking about launching a podcast, feel free to DM me over on Instagram. I'm happy to chat with you about it. It's been really, really fun for me. Anyways, that is not what you're here to hear about. If you are listening for the first time, welcome to the Female Empowered Podcast. I am your host, Krista Gurka. I am the founder and CEO of Pilates in the Grove in Miami, Florida, which is a full service Pilates studio, as well as a concierge cash-based physical therapy and wellness practice. Basically what you're going to get on this podcast is all business tips, mindset tips, real life tips, really, really pulling back the curtain. I'm really transparent with what I talk about because I feel like there's a lot of bullshit out there. Oh, and other disclaimer, I curse a lot. So anyways, there is a lot of BS out there. There's a lot of noise, a lot of garbage. A lot of people, by the way, that are business coaches whose own businesses are failing and not thriving, whose own physical therapy practices and Pilates studios, or for that matter, have never owned their own. And while, listen, I don't want to say that people that are managers who have run big companies or big models and stuff don't have the skills. They certainly do. They certainly do. I've learned a lot from a lot of them. However, owning your own business is different than managing someone else's business. I'm just going to say that. Okay. Owning your own business when everything falls on your shoulders at the end of the day is different than managing someone else's money. So that being said, that's why I would love this podcast. That's why I love doing it. So I can share real information with all of you that is not bullshit. And if you want to ask me questions or if you've done it a different way, that's fabulous. I'm all here for discussion and bringing as much information to all of you as possible. So let's move on to what our topic is going to be today. Our topic today is going to be to discuss how 6 and 7 figure business owners manage to take time away from their business, to take time off, even months at a time without sacrificing revenue. So I'm going to have a little sip of my coffee. All right. And we're going to get into it. Now, I will be the first to admit that probably 7 or 8 years ago, I used to look at people that took months off at a time from their business, like in the summer, and be like, you're just not a real business owner then. If you can step away from your business for a month, then you just don't have like that successful of a business. And that was my own BS, because I did not have a business like that, but not because I couldn't, but because I had created that type of business model. All right. That's the type of business model I created because I was the business. I did everything for the business and I created it that way. So I spoke about this on a couple episodes ago that I spoke about, what did I call it? In 2016, I said, I started this kind of initiative where I called it Operation Krista Gets Hit by a Bus. And it was basically all so that the business could operate and continue to function and continue to be financially solvent without me at the helm. So I know it sounds morbid, but if I got hit by a bus, what would happen to the company? I wanted it to continue to run. And so one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because it was a dream of mine to be able to kind of like rent a house for a month in the summer and go there and just veg. I don't know why this was a dream of mine. Maybe it's because I saw people do it when I was younger and I thought, wow, look how lucky they are. That wasn't my reality growing up. I mean, my mom worked all the time. And I even remember I didn't even get to really enjoy summers because my mom worked. So I had to be, put in daycare and camp. And I thought it was awful. But that was my reality as a child of a single mom who had to work, when we were little. And then when I was older, when I was in high school, I worked all summer. So, I've had a job since I was like 15, and it was always my dream. Again, I don't really know why it was my dream, but finally last year, I did not rent a house for a month, but I did take about 3 weeks off in the summer, and it was amazing. And I am hoping that in 2023, I'm going to be able to do that and actually rent a place and go somewhere with my family and invite friends and invite my family and really take a month off. So that is what I really wanted to talk to you about, because a lot of people are like, that could never be me. So if your first thought in your head was, I wish that were me, I don't get a vacation, I'm the business owner, or I could never leave my business, then I would love for you to listen to this episode, and I would love for you to consider it and consider that that is available to you. Maybe not this year, but if you put the right steps, if you take the right steps, if you put the right systems in place, then maybe next year or maybe the following year or, sometime in the future, this could be available to you. Now, if you choose not to do it, I mean, that's your option as well, but at least having the option is something that you can do. Now, for those of you that are watching, because I have a YouTube channel now, and it basically is all of the podcasts and some other business information and tutorials and things like that kind of need video. So if you're watching this, you can see behind me, I have my year on a wall, right? So I basically color code everything. And the first thing that I do, and the first thing, we did this whole exercise with the people in our Beyond the Movement mentorship programs. The very, very first thing that I do, and that I have the business owners in our programs do, is plan vacation. Okay. Plan time away. So if you have children, the very, very, very first thing that I do is I have kids. It's not as pertinent right now, but because I have one in college and one that's going to be a senior, but I take yellow. So you can see back here, yellow is, and I put all of their vacations. So this is spring break. I have still their holiday plans in there. So I put all of that on the calendar. So if you have little kids, you can even do days off, teacher work days. So if you know that you have to be home with them, why not plan those times out ahead of time? All right. So I look at my year as a whole. I look at the year as a whole and I start planning those things out right from the get-go. So I've already done this. This is actually just the first quarter. And then the very next thing that I do is I look at any special days. So am I going to have a wedding that I have to go to, or a graduation, or a baptism, or a family reunion? Most of you, if you've been following me for a while, you know that my husband travels a lot for work. So he has President's Day weekend off every year. So we also, on President's Day, that's the orange, those are my vacations. So I already know that I'm going to be away those times. All right. I put birthdays on there in case I want to take my son's birthday off, or my own birthday, or my husband's birthday, or my mom's birthday. So those are the first things I do. All the vacation I know I'm going to take. I know I take 1 week at least in the summer. I'm going to hopefully do a month this year. I take 1 week around the holidays. I take 1 week around spring break for my kids' spring break. Now, sometimes I don't necessarily go away, but if I don't go away and I can decide to work, I can always go on the schedule, right? And then my entire team knows when I am going to be away. Now, the next thing that I do, so the first thing I do is all of these days that I know are kind of set in stone from somebody else's schedule. My kids' vacations, birthdays, special days. If I know, like my sister just got married in 2022, so I knew when her wedding was going to be, so I put that on the calendar. That I know of. I don't have any weddings in 2023. I'm kind of off that circuit. But then the next thing that I do, and this is one of the things we had the business owners in our programs do this year too, is I then look at it quarterly and I schedule CEO days. Okay. And what I do on my CEO days are I usually try to go somewhere that I can drive. And I usually take my dog with me and I do planning. Basically, I spend that time working on the business rather than in the business, right? So the way that I started doing it and the way that we have people do it now in our groups is we look at the months that have 5 weeks in them. So in the first quarter, March is the first month of the year that has 5 weeks in it. Okay. And so what I do is I take 2 days in that week, in that month that has 5 weeks, and I block them off for CEO days. Okay. So I'm not necessarily going on vacation, but I am blocking days where I can plan and I can really plan and implement for the upcoming quarter. Now, what I do is I've actually gotten to the point that those become entire weeks. It started off with a day, then it went to 2 days, then it went to 3 days. Now it's an entire week. And that's every month that has 5 weeks in it, then I do that. And you'll have one of those every quarter. Okay. So you can start with that. Look at your schedule, take the weeks that have 5 weeks and try to take one of those days and make it a CEO day. Now, if you choose to make it like a self-care CEO day, awesome. Okay. That's why I used to start doing 2, because I do 1 day of work and 1 day of self-care. And it's really, really, really important to have those days, have those clarity breaks, have those days where you can brainstorm, and have those days where you can reignite, and refuel and recover and reset and all of that stuff. All right. So now you're like, okay, that's great, but how do I really in reality make this happen? Okay. So let's get to some of the things that I've actually done to create an environment where I could do that. Okay. So number 1 is you have to look at all of your tasks as a whole as the business owner. So are you still in the business teaching, treating, teaching classes, doing one-on-one privates? Are you the person that's answering the phones and returning emails, your administrative coordinator? What are your roles in the company? Now, if you're a solopreneur, okay, if it's only you and your business, and I know a lot of people that are very, very successful doing this, right? You can be a solopreneur. Here's the only thing with that is that when you're off, you don't make money. Okay. Now, that does not mean that you cannot be successful, right? I know plenty of people that may charge $250 an hour. Okay. They work, maybe 20 hours a week. Let's even say 25 hours a week. Okay. And they still can take a month off every year. So that's only 48 weeks, right? And they're still going to be making $300,000 a year. Now, minus expenses, someone who's a solopreneur might have really, even if you're paying $1,000 a month in rent, right? Your expenses are, what's that, $25,000? So you can still be a solopreneur and be very successful and not have to work 52 weeks a year. Okay. Now, the only thing is when you don't work, then yes, you do have no money coming in. Right. So that's one thing just to consider. However, you can certainly make high six figures after your expenses as a solopreneur. All right. So I just want to go on the record as saying that. Now, if you have a team of people, this way you can take time off and not lose revenue. Now, the way to be able to do that is start to empower and train your team so that you can truly be off. And by truly be off, that means not taking phone calls, not returning emails, not treating clients, really not being accessible. That's what I believe is true time off, not being accessible. Now, if you choose to want to be accessible, that's another thing, but you have the option not to be accessible. Now, some of the things that I hear from business owners that will prevent you from being able to do this are things like your cell phone is the studio phone or the clinic phone. If your cell phone is the studio phone or your clinic phone, you will never have the opportunity to be off because people will always be calling there. Okay. Or texting there to cancel appointments. So the very first thing I think everyone should do when they start a business is not have their calls come to their phone. Do not do that. Set up Google Voice. We at Pilates in the Grove use GoToConnect, which used to be Jive, which is a voice over internet. So if I wanted to, I could answer calls on my phone not from my actual phone, but from an app on my phone. It's a great system. It gets text through there. So I can do things on my phone without it actually being my phone number. All right. But I don't do that. I don't take calls to my phone. We have a full-time concierge team at Pilates in the Grove. But that is number one. If you are getting calls to your phone, and I know a lot of business owners do this at the beginning because they want to be able to take all the calls and they want to have access and they don't really want to pay for a phone or something like that. But I do not recommend it. I do not recommend it. Okay. Number two is try not to have emails go to your phone. All right. Or set an out of office responder that after 5 p.m. you no longer get any notifications. Or you can do something where one of the women in our business group does this, where she has an autoresponder that says, I have received your email. Please note I return emails at this time and this time, and I will get back to you at that time. So now the person knows you've gotten it, but you may not return it until tomorrow. Okay. So start setting some boundaries. I no longer get our main studio email to my phone at all. So the info at Pilates in the Grove email does not come to my phone, does not come to my computer. I don't even know the password. They change it on me all the time on purpose so that I can't go in there and look at them because I drive myself crazy about that, right? Start setting boundaries of how and when clients and staff have access to you. Now, do I have friends that come to the studio? Yeah, I have personal friends that come to the studio. They know not to text me for their studio information. If it's an emergency, they can, but for the most part, they know to go through the studio because I'm not there. I'm not there all the time. I don't have access to the schedule all the time. I'm doing other things. I'm doing this, recording podcasts and things of that nature. So start telling clients to call the studio. And I even encourage my instructors to do this. So if their clients are texting them information, I always say, this is why we have a full service concierge team, so that the clients can go directly to them. Okay. So I was just having this conversation with one of our members the other day, where she was having the phones come to her cell phone, and she didn't have a phone number on her website. And I was saying, think of how much business you could be leaving on the table with that. And her thought was, well, I don't know if I have the money to pay for someone. Let's even say that you hire someone for $15 an hour for, maybe 4 hours a day, maybe 20 hours a week. Okay. That's $300 a week. Now, if they sell one package because they were able to answer the phone or return someone's phone call or reach out to someone that left a message, they've paid for themselves, right? Because most studios, like a package of 10 classes is $300 or more, something in that effect. So that's all they have to do. And you can tie that into their expectations. Like, that is, in order to keep them on staff, this is what's needed of them. But then in that time, they can also take things off of your plate as an owner, which is returning phone calls, which is doing things like helping with a website or social media or returning emails or doing payment and checkout, checking people in, all of that stuff. All right. So think of it that way. Think of how much money this person can make you versus how much you'd have to spend on having a administrative person. And sometimes these people can work from home. They don't necessarily have to be in your establishment. We, for a long time, had our sales director. She lived in Ohio. So we were able to direct calls to her phone, and she picked them up. It still looked like they were calling Pilates in the Grove. Again, that's why I like Google Voice or a voice over internet. GoToConnect is what we use. So those are ways that you can start relinquishing and delegating control of the day-to-day operations, which is what most business owners feel ties them to the business. Okay. Now that comes with training. Start to put these processes in place. How do you want people to answer your phone? Right? How do you want them to relay information to clients? What are your policies regarding late cancellations and payments and credit cards and all of these things? If anything, if you can do one thing in 2023, my advice would be to systematize and start writing out the processes in your business. Whether you want to grow or not grow, that is one of the top 5 things I think that help us create a more sustainable business and also help us figure out what's working in our business and what's not working in our business and be able to change that. All right. So these are the steps that you need to take, or you should be taking, if you want to take more and more time off and away from your business. The other thing is you can start removing yourself from the schedule. Now, I know a lot of people love to teach. I still teach 1 day a week. I treat patients 1 day a week, and I teach classes 1 day a week. So I do it because I love it. But I also know that if I have to take a day off, if I have to take a week off, I can do that. Some people love still being on the schedule. That's great. But let's not have you be, teaching 25 hours a week plus running the day-to-day operations. It's just not sustainable in the long term. And then you really do limit the profitability of the company because it's all geared around you. All right. Now, some people might be like, well, why do I need that? Like, as business owners, we still need time off. Okay. We need vacation. We don't necessarily need to go away for a month, but we need time to reset and recharge. And it's actually way more productive for your business and way more productive for you and the efficiency of coming up with new ideas and all of these things. Now, in America, and I don't know about other countries, but in America, more than 50% of the American population do not use all of their paid time off. Okay, do not use all of their paid time off. So it becomes like a problem. And why do we think we can do that? We think we can't afford it, not from a we can't pay to go on vacation, but if we leave, the business is going to lose so much that it just can't run without us. So again, if that's how you feel, then that's your own fault and you need to change it. It doesn't change overnight. It's not like tomorrow it's going to happen, but you can set certain strategies in place that it will happen by the end of 2023 or by the summer or whatever it is, that whatever goal you have. Okay. Without taking time off or being able to step away from your business from time to time, right? It leads to increased stress in the workplace, increased stress for you, increased stress for your team, increased stress and mental fatigue for the people in your family, job dissatisfaction, anxiety, burnout, depression, resentment. Okay. And none of us started our business to do all of these things. Okay. Our brains and our bodies need maintenance just like our reformers do. Refueling, resetting, re-energizing increases our physical and mental focus. Okay. So you don't want to put your health in jeopardy. You don't want you to put your team's health in jeopardy, right? You will be much better at your job. And so will your team if everyone is encouraged to take time off. All right. It stimulates your creative muscles. And that's really why, like, I mean, I'm sure most of you know, like truck drivers are only allowed to drive certain amount of hours as pilots, right? That's why sometimes our own flights get delayed or rescheduled because pilots have a limited amount of time. Now, granted, pilots and truck drivers, if they get burnt out or tired, like loss of life could happen. I mean, probably this won't happen in a Pilates studio, but it's also why pitchers are only allowed to pitch certain amount of pitches. Things wear down, right? Our brains wear down. Our cortisol levels go up, and that causes all sorts of other physical and health ailments, right? So let's think about that. Let's prioritize having time off. Now, I am also a big believer that people don't need to take 6 weeks off at a time. My staff does get paid time off, my full-time employees. But I also am I'm transparent about it. Like, listen, I can't have everyone off around the holidays, right? Or January, February, March, and April are our busiest times of the year. Like, let's try not to plan 3-week vacations during that time. This is the opportunity to work and have your schedules full and do that kind of stuff. I also am not going to plan a month off in January. When am I going to plan like 3 or 4 weeks off? In the summer when it's downtime and I can work from anywhere. All right. So one, I want you to understand how important time away from your business is, really how important time away from your business is, and steps that you can take to make this a reality. Now, how does that sound? It can be done. I did it, and I run a 7-figure business. Okay. I have 18 employees, multiple locations, and I can step away from the business for weeks at a time. I can work remotely now, and it's been great. It really has been beneficial for my personal health and sanity, for my relationships with my family, for my relationships with my team, to be honest. Right. I was like a nut job when I was working too much. Okay. I needed to create some buffer in order for the business to grow and thrive. And that's what it's done. Me being able to step away from the business has had a huge return on investment in my business, increased revenue, increased sales, increased profits. Okay. More sustainability, happier employees. And that's what we strive for. So I hope this for you in 2023. If you are interested in learning more about how to set these initiatives in place, we are reopening enrollment. I don't know when you're listening to this actual episode, but we are reopening enrollment for our high ticket inner circle, which is for female business owners growing beyond $250,000 by growing a team and stepping away from the day-to-day operations of the business. So we are on a wait list for that. But if you're interested, you can go to my website, kristagurka.com, and visit the Work With Me page, We are also enrolling for our FitBiz Foundations program, which is a foundational business training for female business owners in boutique healthcare and wellness and fitness, growing to their first 6 figures and beyond, and looking to create systems and strategies in their business that will prevent burnout. All right. Starting the right way is much easier than having to backtrack and redo some things, even though that's possible too. That's what I did. So either way, visit my website, kristagurka.com. You can go to the Work With Me page and you can get on the wait list for both programs. I also am available for one-on-one coaching. I do probably have 1 or 2 options for one-on-one coaching beginning in February of 2023. So if you're interested in that, you can shoot me an email, krista@pilatesinthegrove.com, or you can DM me over on Instagram, krista@pilates. No, that's my email, krista@pilatesinthegrove.com. DM me over on Instagram. I'm at Krista Gurka. All right. And that's all I got for you today. I hope you all have a wonderful, successful, profitable, sustainable 2023. And thanks for joining me for this episode. Until next time, my friends. Bye for now.